Hi everyone, Materim here again with another battle report, and this one has a lot of new stuff in it. First of all, we have a new player. This is Wes and his Empire of Dust army. Wes had just started getting into playing Warhammer Fantasy with us and Ninth Age right before we stopped. Only gotten in like 2 games, and when he heard we were doing Kingdoms of War, he wanted to try that out, so he's here. We are also trying out our first scenario, so this is going to be my Trident Realms versus his Empire of Dust at a 2,000 point loot scenario game. So you see we got the table set up here. The 3 red tokens are the loot. You got one in the center. I placed mine on the hill in the left center, and he put his in the swamp in the top right corner there. So let's go ahead and get into deployment, and I'll kind of show you guys what we all have and get this thing rolling. Okay, so starting on the Empire left, we have a Scorpion Husk. Then next to that is the Catapult. I don't remember what the actual name of it. The Balefire Catapult, that's what it is. Up in front of that is a 10-man unit of mummies. The area where the unit actually is marked out by that metal little tray up under it because he only had about 8 mummies to go with. Next to that is a Bone Giant. Behind them is a unit of 3 regiment of enslaved guardians. Next to the enslaved guardians is his Ammonite Pharaoh that has Mreb's Gwimroar of Unspeakable Darkness. In front of that is a unit of Revenant Chariots and Regiment. Behind that is his Cursed High Priest. Next to the Cursed High Priest is a horde of Revenants, and they have switched their shields for 2-handed weapons to get crushing strength. In front of them is a regiment of Revenant Worm Riders. Next to the Worm Riders is another regiment of Revenant Chariots. Behind that is a unit of Skeleton Archers regiment. Then there is a regiment Swarm. Then behind the tower here up front is a regiment of Skeleton Spearmen. And behind that is a regiment of Skeleton Cavalry. Over here on my side, I'm starting on the right. I have a unit of Naiad Heart Piercers on the hill. Behind that is Leviathan's Bane. Then I've got a unit of 3 Naiad Worm Riders, regiment obviously. They have the Helm of Confidence. Then there's another troop of Naiad Heart Piercers. The Hydra model is what I'm using for my Coral Giant. Then I've got a regiment of Gigas. Behind that is the Siren. Then I've got a troop of Thul. Behind them is a regiment of Naiad Ensnarers with the Brew of Strength. I have a Thul Mythicon next to them. In front of them is my Kraken. Then I've got a 3rd troop of Naiad Heart Piercers. Next to that is a regiment of Depth Horrors. They have the Scrying Gem, so he's had to drop, I think it was 3 units before I had to drop 1. And then on the far end, I have a regiment of River Guard. So my hope here, just in deployment, is I'm going to use the River Guard to go grab the token up on the hill and use their fly movement to just keep the hell away from everything. And I'm figuring between all of my heavyweight in the middle, I can contest the middle point. I'm not really going to devote too much over to that left point unless he just leaves me a huge opening. Because all I really need is the 2 to win, so we'll see where that goes. So I got turn 1. I decided to go ahead and make a show like I'm making for the token, the loot token that's in the swamp, so that he can divert some of his stuff, hopefully from the center, to go there. So I went ahead and moved up my first troop of Heart Piercers because they weren't within range of anything anyway, and I'm following them up with the Worm Riders. Here in the center, I wanted to come up pretty aggressively I know that Kraken is an awesome model and it's kind of intimidating, so I'm hoping to just kind of use that intimidation factor to keep him back. But other than that, I want to keep everybody kind of within the window of the inspiring from Siren, mainly because, at least on paper, it looks like the Trident Realm uses wet tissue paper for armor. So I'm kind of worried about getting shot apart. So hopefully the inspiring will keep that from happening until I can get into some close combat. And over here, I managed to at the double on top of the loot token and got hold of that. Um, Everybody else is just kind of moving around the hill so that when he advances, I'll have some shots on him with the Heart Piercer and can send the Depth Horrors kind of wherever they need to go. So I ended up, during the magic phase, my full Mythican has Aura of Heroism. So I went ahead and threw Aura of Heroism on the Ensnarers here just so that I can extend that inspiring bubble. Or rather, no, that's the rallying, sorry. So I ended up getting 2 successes on that, so they have rallying too. So that's going to just extend my safe bubble a little bit more. So, yeah, that was it. I really didn't have anything else in range, so we go into Empire of Dusk's turn. He kind of surprises me and doesn't go straight for the token. I think his plan here is to try and deal with the threats that are coming on this side. And once he's in the clear, then he can kind of grab the loot token at his leisure, so he's not really rushing into it. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure exactly how the matchup between these skeletons and my Worm Riders is going to work, but it's a decent idea. Over here, he comes up pretty aggressively. I was kind of wondering why until after the game we talked about it. He actually forgot about the chariots having bows, so he's not really thinking about them as the potential for range. He just wants to go slam them into something. He's got himself set up. He's got 2 uses of Surge with these characters. One of them, like the Pharaoh, is throwing 12 dice, and the Cursed Priest is throwing 10. So he thinks he can go ahead and Surge the chariot units into position. So we'll kind of see how that works. And over here, he's bringing up the Mummies and the Scorpion Husk to threaten my River Guard. I don't know if he, like I told him, but I don't think he really understood what them having flight meant, that he was unlikely to catch me. So I think I'm just going to turn around and run like hell with them and keep the loot token away. He does some shooting with the archers in the back and manages to put a single wound on my Coral Giant. And then during his surge, he falls a little short. As you can see, he's like 2 inches shy of hitting the Gigas with the chariots on the right, and quite a bit from hitting the Kraken. So that puts me into a pretty good place for some counter charges, and I'm hoping to mop up those chariots on my turn. So we go to my turn. I 90 degree and run off the hill, and now pretty much nothing he's got is going to be able to shoot at me. He's going to have to actually physically come around. And if I can lead those mummies on a wild goose chase for a while, I'll be pretty happy with that. Over here, the Depth Horrors go slamming into the flank of the chariots, and the Kraken goes full on into the front. Time to see what this amazing looking model can do. And over here, I decide to just put overwhelming force against the chariots here with the Coral Giant, the Gigas, and the Thul in the flank. You can also see in the top corner here, I have thrown my Worm Riders at the Spearmen. The big thing here is they did go over the fence, so I am going to be hindered, but I'm figuring they're just spearmen, so I should still be able to do pretty good. I'll be wounding on just about anything I can hit with, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not really moving the any of my range stuff because I want to keep those firing lines clear if he goes for the token. I didn't really have any magic to speak of, so we go straight into combat, and the Kraken and the Depth Horse just open up. That's what, 12, 14 wounds on the Chariot unit here. But these Chariots take it even worse. They're 18, 24 wounds. So unless I roll double ones, both of those units are probably going away. Oh, it does look like I did some damage to the swarms during shooting up at the top. I just didn't take a photo of it. And then over here, I didn't really do as well as I was expecting to do. I only managed to sneak through 3 wounds on the Spearman. It's a start, but with everything in this army having leech life, I really need to do more at a single throw. So, needless to say, my nerve check does nothing, and I back off an inch here. Obviously, at 24 wounds, these chariots weren't staying around. So I just did some reforms to deal with the snakes coming in, or the worm riders. And over here, this chariot also goes away, and I present my fronts as well. So that even, like we measured it out, and even the mummies here are just barely within the front of the depth horrors. So I'm not really presenting a flank, and I'm thinking I'm doing all right here. So we go into the Empire of Dust's turn. The Scorpion has decided it's going to go chasing after the River Guard. Over here, the Mummies and the Bone Giant decide to go take it to my Depth Horrors. Only real plus side to this is that the Depth Horror, or not the Depth Horror, the Bone Giant had to go through the forest, so he's going to be hindered. So maybe that'll save me. Over here, he advances pretty hard with the I guess that's his Revenant Horde. His hope is that he's within range of 2 of the of his 2 surges, so he's going to try and send them into the Thul during his magic phase. His swarms are also coming out too. You can see down here his snakes kind of zigzagged and charged my Coral Giant, and he ended up slamming into the front with both his spearmen and the cavalry into my worm riders. So that's got me more than a little nervous. Over here he used his enslaved guardians have wind blast, so he used it on these heart pierces in the back and sent them back over the wall so that I'll be taking shooting penalties. And he manages to push forward and get his with the surge, get his horde of revenants into my Thul. If he manages to kill the Thul, he'll be able to reform in such a way that he'll pick up that second token. If not, and he has to go back an inch, there's enough room for the token to fall in between the units so that he won't claim it this turn. He didn't really do anything else in shooting, so we go to close combat, and I do, frankly, better than I expected here. I only take 6 wounds. Or no, 7 wounds, and then I also take 7 wounds here. This is decidedly less good, because he's going to break those thulls on a roll of, what, 5? And that's just going to be very, very bad for me at the moment. And over here he does 5 wounds on the Worm Riders, which is actually less than I expected that he was going to do. So I feel pretty confident. They've got the Helm of Confidence, so I would be very surprised if they go anywhere. But obviously, yeah, my poor Depth Horrors aren't going to hold up to that. So he overruns with the Mummies. I guess he's trying to either cut off the River Guard, who are going to be running around this hill, or go after my Heart Piercers. And then he turns the Bone Giant so that he's facing the flank of my Kraken. And over here, he rolls like balls, and the Horde bounces back. he doesn't even shake me. So they go back, and the token falls out in the middle, so nobody gets a hold of that. Actually, I just realized something. He should have had that because he moved up during the shooting phase. He should have actually had the token at this point. So that, yeah, that didn't work. Oops. But that's just how it is. So if that's the smallest mistake that we made this game, I'll be pretty happy. And over here, like I pretty much assumed, he did not do anything to the Worm Riders, so he backs off an inch. And over here, he ends up throwing 2 more wounds on the Coral Giant. Just did not roll very well and bounces off. So those Worm Riders are in a world of trouble right now. Okay, so I guess this is just a better picture of them bouncing back. Yeah, oh, because they weren't touching because of the way the models fell together. So yeah, this is after they've moved back an inch. So my turn 3, the River Guard 90 degree again and run like hell. My whole plan with them is just to stay up as far away from anything he's got as possible to keep the loot token safe. Which, looking at it, may kind of be a little bit of a waste, because they're actually not a terrible unit in terms of combat ability and stuff. But I figure I'm just safer not risking them and keeping them out of everything. And over here, I decide to use Overwhelming Force. I threw the Giant and the Gigas into the Worm Riders, and then I threw the Thul, my Ensnarers, and the Kraken into the flank on the Revenants. Now, again, this is where we made the mistake because I moved up. I claimed the token here instead of the Horde having it. So that's kind of a big oopsie. And over here, I decided to charge into the Cavalry instead of the Spearmen, mainly because this is a counter charge and I don't have to worry about being hindered on a counter charge. So I figure this is probably my best option to deal with the... actually I've got Pathfinder, so I don't know why I was concerned anyway. But anyway, I'm going to go into the Cavalry hoping to put them down. I think I had hit them... I may have shot them at some point because it looks like they've got a wound die behind them, but I'm not sure. But I'm figuring I can put enough hurt on them, maybe I can break them, and once that's done, I'm not really worried about the Spearmen stopping me from getting the token over here. We open up some fire with the Heart Piercers here and put 4 wounds on the mummies. And then from across the board, my Leviathan's Bane tags them to put another 4, so they've got 8 sitting on them. So I'm feeling pretty confident there. And this fight goes horrible for my opponent. As you can see, I've got 26 wounds on his Horde. And over here, I end up getting, it looks like they've got a total of 8 on the Cavalry after this. So, oh, and you can see I'm down to 1 wound. My regeneration on the Worm Riders really paid off this time, so I lost 4 wounds from them. However, I roll like crap, and they bounce off. Over here, I guess it looks like I did 10 wounds to the Worm Riders here, so they get broken up, and my reforms look as such. And over here, I absolutely demolish the Revenants. And this is why the mistake that we made wasn't so big, because they would have had the token, but once I killed them, I would have claimed it. So this is back to where it should have been. So at this point, I've got 2 tokens, and I'm looking pretty good on that right flank as well. So I think this may very well be a sweep. My opponent is feeling the same way as well. So there is a little bit of a talk of him just throwing in the towel at this point, but we decide to go ahead and keep pushing just to make sure that the battle report wasn't super short. But I turn around and face the Kraken at the Bone Giant because I don't want to take that in the flank or rear. What I didn't realize at this point is by turning around, I completely forgot about the enslaved guardians up at the top, and I am just within their charge range and presenting a beautiful flank. So this was not a great tactical decision for me. I also forgot to show it earlier, but during the shooting phase, I ended up routing the mummies, so they are gone, and that's one less thing I need to worry about. So at this point, I'm thinking that my left flank is pretty solid, because all I can see is the Bone Giant being a threat, and I should be able to take him out with the Kraken, I think. Over here, because of the way the move went, the Spearmen are now in the flank of my Worm Riders, and they decide to go for it. The cavalry go straight in the front again, and now I'm more than a little worried. Over here, he decides to send his swarm into my Thul, thinking that all he's got to do is do one wound and trigger another route check or nerve check, and I'm probably going to route there, and he'll start to break apart my my center. Over here, he's moving his archers and basically has them set up so that he can double surge them, first with the Pharaoh who's in the back, and then with his High Priest to send them across the board. He's hoping to steal the loot token while I'm tied up here on the left and keep it away from me. And over here, the poor slow Scorpion is still trying to chase around my frogmen. Oops, sorry, went back. Making me think that I probably shouldn't have really bothered putting much over here, but I'm figuring it's nice because it's clearing out the center and makes it unlikely for him to be able to get my center token as well. Over here during the nerve check, he wavers the Heart Piercers. And oh, and I forgot to go. He threw a charge in here that I was talking about earlier, but because of Ensnare, he only does 3 wounds, so some massive flubbing there. I'm feeling very, very strong about this. And then he rolls boxcars on his nerve check, and my freaking Kraken goes away. So yeah, routing the Kraken is huge here because I was not prepared for this. All I've got even facing him at this point is the Nereids, and I'm really, really worried here. And over here, he destroys the Worm Riders, and now I'm in trouble because both of my flanks have started to collapse. And frankly, it's just awesome how quick the game can turn around, because my opponent was really not a turn ago ready to completely throw in the towel and surrender, and now he's got me back on my heels, and that's something that I'm really, really loving about this game, and frankly, the way we're playing the scenarios. So scenarios definitely make a huge difference. So I decide best defense is a strong offense, and I have a sneaky plan here that I hope is going to work. So I throw my Nereids into the front of his Ensnare unit. I throw everything I've got at the Swarm, which actually had failed to do a wound against the Thul last turn, so he didn't even provoke a nerve check. But I figure I'll wipe them off the board and lay claim to the middle here. Now over here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to essentially force him to start dividing up his forces. Plan is I put the Coral Giant up front hoping that he'll charge me. I don't think the Coral Giant can or will go down to some Spearmen. And once I finish up the Swarm here, I'm going to spin the Gigas around so that I'll be able to do a charge with the Gigas and the Coral Giant against his Spearmen and take them out, and that'll break me a window to get in there to the loot token and his archers, who will probably be holding it by that point. And I'm hoping, too, that his cavalry will end up going after the Heart Piercers in the bottom, and I can lead them away, just kind of thinning that out so that I can get up in there. So we'll see how that works. I also go ahead to spread my characters out. The Thul is going to give some support to The right side, figuring that the Aura of Heroism will help since they won't have any Inspiring. And the Siren goes over here to the left, and my plan, my sneaky plan, is to get over there and throw the Siren's Call on the Bone Giant and pull him out of the way so that if I don't break the Enslaved Guardians, he won't be able to charge the Nereids in the corner. Those of you who play Trident Realms are probably screaming at me, identifying the problem with this plan, but we'll get to that in a second. Over here, I'm still having the River Guard run, but at this point, I'm worried about this flank, so I'm turning them back in so that they'll be able to come back and assist shortly. And no! Who would have thunk it? The undead don't find sirens sexy, and I can't use... During Magic Phase, I find out that I can't use the Siren's Call because it cannot target units with Shambling, which is his entire army. So, not only have I moved things into a dangerous position because the Siren is there all by herself, but I've done it for no reason, and now the Nereids are in super trouble because that Giant is going to just come and rock their flank if I don't kill the Enslaved Guardians. Oh boy. So yeah, this is arguably the worst tactical decision I made during the game. It just shows you the benefit of learning your rules before you sit down and playing your army. But it is what it is. I've just got to take it and roll with it. Over here, the Thul and the Gigas just absolutely demolish the swarms. And here, I think I'm still kind of frustrated about my mistake earlier, and I wasn't thinking clearly. So I moved the Gigas, reformed them in the way that I wanted to go deal with those spearmen. But rather than have the Thul reform and get ready to help out in the middle here, I pushed them forward thinking that I would go hunting his characters, which was probably a pretty stupid move. Because frankly, I need the help in the middle there, and it just wasn't something I was thinking about. I don't really, whoops, went back again. I don't really think the Coral Giant is in any real danger from the Spearmen, so that's fine. And over here, he brings death. Bone Giant goes in the flank, Enslaved Guardians in the front, and unless things go very, very well for me, I think the Heart Piercers and my loot token are in a lot of trouble here. He turns the Scorpion, and it's still coming to chase the River Guard. And he really didn't have much in the way of magic or shooting. I think he rolled a 1 on his catapult, so no big deal. So we go into combat here. He ends up putting 7 wounds on the Piercers, which I think actually isn't bad. Ensnaring helped me an awful lot here. Unfortunately, that means he does heal one of his wounds on one of the 2 wounds I had put on the Guardians, so that's not great. I'm hoping for a good roll here to prevent me from going anywhere. Oh, and wow, that is a terribly blurry picture. Sorry about that, but he ends up putting 2 more wounds on the Coral Giant. And only 2 wounds on the Heart Piercers. The cavalry here flubs like crazy. He does heal 1 wound off it, but I'm figuring with only 2 wounds on them, they're actually probably going to hold out, and I should be in good shape. But over here, he rolls very, very well, and my Heart Piercers go away, and so his Bone Giant steals the loot token. He doesn't hurt me with the Spearmen, and I bounce off, which due to Iron Resolve heals me. And he doesn't rout me here, so he bounces off as well. So we go into my turn. I send the Thul up. I'm actually like a 1/4 of an inch outside of charging his High Priest up there, so I just move like right up in its face. I charge in with the Giant and the Gigas like I was planning to. And I make another rules mistake here. I forget that that being disordered prevents you from shooting, and I don't charge in with the Heart Piercers thinking I'm going to shoot the cavalry next turn. I move the heart piercers on the left so that they can get a line of sight on the giant, and I need to shoot him to death so I can pick up the loot token. This is just a better picture of where I ended up with the Thull. And over here, I end up moving the Siren around so that I can do Drain Life on the giant. Spoiler alert, I do go to all this trouble to move it so that I'm not in line of sight of his guardians, and then during my shooting magic phase, I forget to cast Drain Life. So that was stupid. Over here, I bring up the River Guard because they need to get into this now, and I'm hoping they'll be the ones to, once the giant's dead, that can swoop in and pick up the second loot token. I don't even know if that's legal now that I'm thinking about it, but I don't think the rules said anything about it. And I've got the Heart Piercers down here being able to try and shoot as well. During shooting, I end up getting 5 wounds between the Heart Piercers and the Leviathan's Bane on him. And over here, I shoot and put a few more wounds on. Again, this should not have happened because I was disordered and should not have been able to shoot here. Which is particularly bad because those wounds were enough to rout him and open up that that window, and I feel pretty bad about that. Over here, I end up doing like a bunch of wounds. I bring them up to 12 wounds. So I'm figuring, again, unless I roll double ones, I should be good to go. And I certainly am. I decide to run forward because I need to threaten those archers. But the Coral Giant runs forward an inch. And the Gigas only run forward like 4 inches. So I'm still not really in a threat range because the Gigas are just so slow. So we go to his turn. The giant, not harmed by the shooting, runs for cover into the forest. His scorpion comes up on the hill, and the enslaved guardians turn around so that they're facing the river guard. His hope is that he can use the surge from his pharaoh back there to go ahead and send him into combat against me. He moves his archers up into the swamp to pick up the token and then turns them backwards so that when he surges them, they'll run towards the back corner and hopefully get out of my charge range. So for a game that for the first 3 turns looked like it was pretty solidly mine, I started losing real quick. So I'm kind of panicking at this point, trying to figure out how I'm going to upset this and get things back. During his surge, he ends up during shooting, trying to drop a rock on the river guard to weaken him up. That didn't work, so he uses surge and falls about 2 inches short, which is good for me because I have fly. My plan is to just leapfrog over these guys next turn so that he can't get me. And over here, his surge pushes the guys out of combat range, so the loot is making its way far away from me. My turn, I go ahead and push up. I can't charge, so I just go ahead and push up as much as I can to get charge range on turn 6, because I think this is turn 5. The Thull do go ahead and charge into the back of his High Priest. I'm figuring if I can kill her, I should be okay in terms of not letting him have the movement to get away from me. Here's another blurry thing, but this just shows the leapfrog maneuver I was talking about. Unfortunately, I had forgotten about Surge, so he can just turn around and surge into my rear, so this probably wasn't the smartest thing I could have done. Over here, I unload some Drain Life and Shooting, do 9, or get the Bone Giant up to 9, and break him! He routes, dropping the token into the forest. Unfortunately, the only thing surrounding it are individuals who can't pick it up, but I'm hoping that I can get away with the River Garden, go get it, because at this point I'm still not thinking about him surging into my back. So Over here, I shoot with the Leviathan Bane, I think, and put 6 wounds on his archers, so that's pretty awesome. Over here, I do 6 wounds to his High Priest and bounce off again. The other thing we forgot here is, again, the Disordered. As I understand it, thinking back on it, he shouldn't be able to cast any spells next turn that he's Disordered. But if that's not correct, and Disorder, I would appreciate if somebody in the comments would let me know whether Disordered affects spell casting as well as ranged attacks. That would be super helpful. So we go to his turn, and he does exactly what I was afraid of. He turns around the Guardians, and now I realize that by moving up his Pharaoh, he is just within range to throw a Surge and rush the back of my River Guard. So that's not good. Over here, he turns around his archers. It does look like he's dropped the loot token, but he had not. It just wouldn't balance on his top of his character, so we just put it behind him. His thinking here is that he's more likely to survive if he takes the charge in the front, because he just doesn't have the room to run away from me anymore. And over here, he needed a 2 surge, gets it no problem, and the River Guard are about to take a ridiculous number of attacks right up their asses. My only hope here is that Entangle or Ensnare will help make it a little less painful, but we'll have to see. And it does! Holy crap! He throws 6 wounds on the back of the River Guard unit, which for, what is it, 9, 18, 27 attacks. Only doing 6 is pretty amazing. And then he rolls very low. I think he rolled a 3 on his dice, and he doesn't rout me or even waver me, so he has to back off an inch. And this is the best news I've had all game. And that's pretty much it. That was end of, okay, I guess that was end of turn 6. We didn't go into a turn 7. And the way it looks, we got 1 token over here still being held by his archers. I've got 1 token held by the River Guard. And there is 1 token in the middle of the forest unclaimed. So it is a 1-1 tie. This was an awesome game. We had so much fun. This game, like, I liked it before when we were just playing the kill games, but throwing scenarios in absolutely cranks up the fun of this game to 11. We had a great time. It was a challenge through the whole game. Just very, very entertaining. And it's awesome because if you look, like, if we were playing just kill, I would have won this game pretty handily because I've got a lot left on the board, and he's only got, what, 3 units, 2 individuals, and a cannon, or a catapult. So he felt as a first-time player that doing the scenario really gave him a great opportunity to win, and he played it smart, and other than him kind of throwing away the chariots, it was a fight the whole time. So we had a great time. I loved it. Ensnare is amazing. It saved my butt in several fights that really I should have lost. So if he had killed those River Guard there, it would have turned into a win for him. So that was very, very good. I definitely think the turning point in the match was the double 6s to rout the Kraken. I still think if the Kraken had been around, I could have held down that left flank very, very well. I don't really fear the enslaved Guardians, or really even the Bone Giant with the Kraken there. But once he was gone, whew, things turned real quick. But for this being literally my opponent's 3rd game of any sort of wargaming, he played, I think, 2 games of 9th Age, and then this was his 3rd game. He did amazingly. I think it says a lot about the Kings of War rules that he was able to pick them up so fast and really give an amazing game from the get-go. So I am super excited, looking forward to way more games. Just as a little heads up about what is happening, we are putting together the start for a narrative campaign that's going to be going. I put together a little map, and once I get some information from the other players about their characters and their armies, we should be getting that started here in the next few weeks. So keep your eye out for that. Until then, we're going to keep trying to get some games in and just practice up and learn the rules. There were still a couple of major issues rules-wise. I really need to remember Disordered and how it stops you from being able to shoot. And maybe cast spells if that's the case as well. Please let me know. That's really about the biggest one, I think, that we were just flat forgetting. But other than that, I feel like I'm coming along well in learning the rules and learning the tactics of the game. I'm sure I'm making it harder for myself, changing armies every game, but I have 5 armies, 6 armies maybe. I could probably make a Forces of Nature army too by combining my different armies and stuff. So I kind of want to see how each army plays and compare. Right now, the Herd is still my favorite, but these Trident Realms certainly are giving them a run for the money. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was an absolutely amazing game. We had a hell of a lot of fun, and I hope I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.